Devil May Cry 3 is one of the greatest video games ever made. Not only was it revolutionary for the Devil May Cry series, but it was also revolutionary for action games as a whole. The game offers a lot of combo potential with its many weapons, combos, and styles, with one of these styles being the subject of today's video. And if you don't know what the style system is, there's specialized movesets that change the way you play through the use of the B or circle button. DMC3 offers 6 styles in total, and they change the way the game is played in a lot of ways. You have Trickster, which emphasizes quickly dodging enemy attacks, Swordmaster, which allows a greater expansion of melee attacks, offering new moves to slay demons with, Gunslinger, which also expands the moves you can do with firearms, Royalguard, which allows you to block and counter enemy attacks, Quicksilver, which stops time, and Doppelganger, which creates a double for double the damage. Each style is worth using and experimenting with, but the topic for today's video is going to be the style Royalguard. Now, Royalguard works like this. You block an enemy's attack, and if you block it perfectly, you don't take any damage. And if you don't block it at the right time, you'll block it for reduced damage. This doesn't always work, however, as some attacks are capable of breaking through your guard and leaving you open to attacks. Now, blocking attacks fills up a meter called the Rage meter. Depending on how much of it is filled, also determines how much damage you do when countering attacks. Countering also requires a specific timing to execute, as not doing it correctly still causes you to take damage. Now that that's explained, I want to see how much of Devil May Cry 3 can be beaten with just this style. Now the rules for this challenge are as follows. Rule 1. We have to use Royalguard for as long as the game allows. The only exceptions to this rule are enemies that are required to be shot or hit to be vulnerable to attacks or objects. Rule 2. Now this one might be a little divisive, but I'm going to be playing on New Game Plus. I know some people are going to think that this makes the challenge too easy, but trust me, I struggled enough with this challenge as is. All New Game Plus is giving me is more health and Devil Trigger gauge. Also, this save file is set to yellow, so I don't have infinite continues, gold orbs don't revive, and if I die, I have to restart the level all over again unless I have gold orbs. And for Rule 3, the difficulty is set to normal, which I think is pretty fair for this kind of challenge. It's not too hard, but not too easy. Now that the rules are out of the way, let's get right into it. Mission 1 isn't too bad. The first mission has 2 enemy types. The Hell Pride, which is easy to counter, as its swings are really slow, and the Hell Lust, which was tougher to counter at first, mainly due to how fast it is. They give off a sound cue during their attacks, which lets you know when to block. I did have to replay this mission a few times to get used to Royalguard again, as I have not used it in a very long time. After killing enough enemies, we head into Mission 2. Mission 2 has more lusts and prides, but also introduces the Hell Wrath, which blows itself up when it gets close. The explosion is a little tricky to guard against, as you can't just block it the instant it slams the ball into the ground, you need to block slightly after. Once enough demons have been killed, we have to fight the mini-boss, the Hell Vanguard. It only has one attack at the moment, which is a pretty telegraphed swing that isn't too hard to block. It needs to be perfect block, however, as it's capable of breaking through your guard. Once we beat him, we start Mission 3. Mission 3 starts off with a new enemy called Enigmas to spawn. These guys shoot projectiles all over the place, and instead of fighting them, I just ran into the bar instead. Here we have to use our sword to smash some objects and a crest on a wall to unlock the door. We head into the strip club where we get introduced to another enemy, the Hell Sloth. They have only one attack, which is to teleport up to you and attack. Fighting one on your own isn't hard as they have the same attack animation as a Hell Pride. What makes them tough here is that they all tend to attack at the same time, so it can get pretty distracting trying to perfect block everything all at once. Instead of trying to perfectly block them, I decided to hold block and fill up as much of my rage meter as I could and attack them. Once we finish this encounter, we leave the club and head to the Temini Grue, at the end of the street where we fight our first real boss, Cerberus. This fight is tough mainly because I have a hard time countering a lot of his attacks. All 3 of his heads are covered in ice at the start of the fight, so what I did was run up to his heads and attack them with Royalguard to remove the ice. Even if you have none of the rage meter filled, attacking the ice will remove it. Now that the ice is removed, we can finally attack. Most of his attacks can be blocked regularly, but one attack to take advantage of is his head shove. I was able to consistently block this perfectly, which fills up the rage meter faster. Once the meter is filled, we counter his attacks with a royal release. This will do pretty good damage, and once we do this enough, each of his heads will go down one by one, which makes the fight much easier. The only reason this fight gets harder as you beat him is because his attacks get way stronger and longer. But with enough time, we were able to beat him and get to proceed to mission 4. In this mission, we make our way up some stairs and go through a blue door where we had to fight some hell prides, and in the next room we had to fight some enigmas. I can't for the life of me get the timing down for blocking them, so I just hold guard to fill up the rage meter and then kill them. We head into the next room where we need to hit some statues and a crest with our swords to raise an elevator. In this room, hell gluttonies are introduced. They only have one attack, which is where they step back and blast sand at you. The timing on this is confusing, as you need to block slightly after they shoot the sand at you. These guys can be frustrating because they all like to attack at the same time, so you need to be patient and try fighting them one at a time. Once we beat them, and some health sloths, we make our way up more ramps and go through a door, and when we try to cross the gap, the stairs break and we fall into a pit. Down here, it can get pretty chaotic as so many enemies attack at the same time. I tried to perfect block whenever I could, but I would just hold it down whenever enemies attacked at the same time. You can also take advantage of the hell rafts in this room and have them kill your enemies for you. Once it's over, step onto the portal and head through the large doors where we have to fight the Gigapede. This fight really wasn't that hard. I couldn't get the timing down for most of his attacks, but the attack I was able to guard most of the time was when it shoots purple orbs at you. The timing is a little tough, mainly due to the fact that if you mess it up, it breaks your guard, but if you do get it, your rage meter fills up really fast. Once the rage meter is full, jump on top of the Gigapede's head and attack. This does a lot of damage if you have a full rage meter, and it actually makes the fight pretty short. Do this enough times, and you'll go down before you even know it. We head through the small door, grab the astronomical board, and start mission 5.
Get to the point, or you want to keep on dancing.
This mission starts with a new enemy called the Blood Goyles. If you hit them with any melee attacks, they split in half. You're meant to shoot them to turn them to stone, which prevents them from splitting, but strangely enough, even when they split, they still share the same health from the Blood Goyle they split from. So if a Blood Goyle has low health and it splits, the second Blood Goyle will also have low health. So you can beat them with only Royalguard, as their health keeps getting lower and lower. It just takes an extremely long time. It took me about 13 minutes to beat the first set of these dudes. Now we have to fight the Jester. You're meant to shoot him to tire him out, but instead, block all of his attacks he sends your way, and attack him while his shield is up. The shield doesn't completely mitigate all damage, so through this strategy, we can beat him without using our guns. Next, we head to the top of the Chamber of Echoes and use the astronomical board, which activates the jump pad and lets us grab the Vahira. We use it in the room where we fought the Enigmas and are able to grab the Soul of Steel. We kill some more enemies, which I'm actually getting pretty good at now, by the way. And we make it to the pit we fell in earlier, and use the Soul of Steel to cross it. Now we have to go up an elevator, but as soon as we go up, more enemies drop down. If you don't kill them fast enough, you have to restart this elevator again, but if you just block all their attacks and attack them back, you should kill almost all of them at the same time. Now we make our way to the boss of this mission, Agni and Rudra.
Sigh? What is sigh? Well, a sigh is when...
Enough already! How long are you two gonna keep carrying on like this?
Now you can't attack them head on as they just block it, but there is a pretty easy strategy once you figure it out. First, block all of their sword attacks until your gauge is full. Once Agni and Rudra start their jump attacks, just jump and counter and it almost always works. Eventually one of them will die, and once that happens, the one that's still alive will get the other sword and get the moves of the other. Just block his attacks as good as you can, and when he leaves himself open, counter with Royalguard, and the fight will be over before you know it. Mission 6 is pretty short and really doesn't have any combat. We just need to do a small riddle and dodge some spikes to get some items to clear debris from a door. Mission 7 is the hardest mission so far. We jump down this chamber and make our way into a library where we fight pawns. These guys are easy to fight, but if you want, you can just grab the Arkham fragment underneath them and just leave the room. Seriously, you don't have to fight them, just pick it up and run. We proceed through more rooms, fighting enemies that get in our way until we get to the room of Tranquil Souls where we fight the Hellgreed. These guys infinitely spawn demons until they die, and they're pretty annoying. The way I beat them was by countering the enemies they spawn and trying to hit both at the same time. It took a little while, but it wasn't too hard, and once they died, we grabbed the Siren Shriek and head into the next room where we use the Arkham fragment we found to power an elevator. This takes us back to the Chamber of Echoes where we use the Siren Shriek on a flaming door and head through a few rooms until we have to hit a crest and smash a wrecking ball to drop a crystal skull. When we grab it, we have to fight more Hellgreeds, which spawn Helllusts, which make this fight pretty tough as they attack aggressively and mostly at the same time. With enough patience, we were able to kill the Hellgreeds and kill the remaining enemies. We backtrack to some previous rooms, killing enemies along the way, and make our way to the hardest fight so far, Vergil.
You got that right.
This fight is tough, as all of his moves are fast and require good reaction time. Most of his moves break through your guard, and if you aren't perfect, they deal a pretty good amount of damage. This fight took a few tries to beat, mainly because I couldn't get a perfect block on a lot of his attacks. But after a couple tries, I was able to get the timing mostly down, and finally started wrecking him and being able to do pretty good damage against him. Now, Mission 8 isn't too long and only 2 enemies are in this level. So first, we have to run around and hit these weird bulbous things with our sword to remove the tusks from a passageway. Try to avoid any acid puddles on the ground. We run through more passages, one of which has a Gigapede chasing after you. You don't have to kill it, but I wanted the extra orbs, and it's not actually that hard to beat anyways. In the next hallway, we encountered the Hell Envy. They had the same moveset as the Hell Prides, so we were able to beat them quite easily. We head through more rooms until we fight more Envies to get the Ignis Fatuus. We fight one more Gigapede and make our way to the Leviathan's heart where we use the Ignis Fatuus to initiate a boss fight against it. This fight isn't too hard. All you do is block the Hell Enemies and attack the right or left heart to make the main heart expose its core. Block some attacks quickly and attack the heart or counter into the heart to get some damage in. Eventually when you do this again, the heart will open and start with a laser attack. This attack is perfect for blocking, but if you mess it up, it will break your guard. Once the attacks are over, you can finally attack the core. Repeat the process, and eventually 2 lasers come out, filling up your rage meter even faster, letting you do even more damage. Mission 9 has one of the most durable enemies, which are the Arachnids. They take a long time to beat with Royalguard, but thankfully most of their attacks are easy to block and counter, so I didn't have a hard time beating them. We run through more rooms, avoiding any enemies along the way, and avoiding any environmental hazards. We eventually reach the provision storeroom where we collect the ambrosia and fight more arachnids. We run back to the subterranean cavern and run through a waterfall where we use the ambrosia to unlock a door and fight another boss.
I'll treat you so nicely. You'll never want to leave.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Now we fight Nevan, who unfortunately needs to be hit with melee to remove her shield of bats. I tried to be as careful as possible to not hit her with my sword and do unnecessary damage. The attacks to take advantage of, and the ones that are pretty consistent at guarding, are her lightning columns, electric floor attack, her swarm of bats, and the electric beam she shoots out of the floor. I would guard those attacks, break down her shield, and hit her with Royalguard. Once her health gets low enough, she will keep doing her health drain attack, which prevents you from getting close, but if you attack fast enough, you can get some damage in before she starts it. Once we beat her, we head through a door and start mission 10. Now this mission isn't very long, it's mostly just running around collecting items. We do get to fight the Dullahans, and to beat them I would just jump and block and over and then hit them from behind. They don't have much health, so they kind of go down in just basically 2 hits. Mission 11 has one of the most annoying enemies ever, which are the Soul Eaters. These guys are so annoying as they only have one attack, which is a grab that sucks away your devil trigger. It can't be guarded against, and since the only encounters with them are forced, we can't run away either. Thankfully, if you let them grab you, they eventually blow up, so we don't have to attack at all. Another good thing is we're only forced to fight them twice. We also have to hit these cubes into these small holes to open a passageway, so we have to use our sword yet again. The boss of this mission, Beowolf, is also really fun. Most of his attacks are not too hard or too easy to block. The attacks I find the best to counter are his punches, his charging attack, the cages he launches at you, and his barrage of feathers. The harder attacks to block are his AoE attacks, as they aren't instant damage. The attacks need to be guarded slightly after the blast animations. I found it easier to jump and guard these attacks. Once your rage meter is full, jump and attack his eye, and he'll eventually retreat. Mission 12 is so stressful. The reason for this is that you're constantly losing health and it depletes at a pretty fast speed. You need to kill enemies as fast as possible to not waste too much time, but also to get the green orbs that every demon drops. You're going to want to be pretty good at Royalguard at this point so you don't take any unnecessary damage, or you'll at least want to have some healing items. Now none of the enemies are that hard, it's just the depleting health that makes this mission really intense. But once it's over, we also have to fight Geryon at the end of this mission. In his first phase, we stand at the side of the bridge blocking him as he comes by. We keep doing this until he stops, and then we attack. Eventually the bridge collapses, and we fall into a big coliseum which gives us more freedom to move around. Here we wait and block all the missiles he fires at us until he slides into the middle of the arena. When he does his slam attack, jump and counter to do a good chunk of damage. Apparently, jumping raises your Royalguard window, so that makes this attack much easier to counterattack. Eventually, he creates time-stopping spheres that slow you down and let him ram into you. You keep blocking and countering until he's dead. Mission 13 is really short, but still the hardest mission so far. We do fight a new chess piece, which is the bishop, but it's really easy. The real challenge of this mission is the second Vergil fight. I died so many times. This fight is absolutely brutal, mainly because for the life of me, I just couldn't get the timing down on his Beowolf attacks. If you mess up on a single attack in the combo, it will break your guard and then it'll follow up with another attack. The only attack that I was able to reliably guard was Starfall, which is a move he fortunately does frequently. I was somewhat starting to get the hang of his other moves, but not that much. Vergil also gets the ability to double trigger, and because of this, his health will regenerate, and he's much more aggressive. So we have to outpace the healing by dealing damage, which is hard because I'm only good at guarding one of his attacks. Halfway through the fight, he switches to his Yamato, which is something I'm pretty decent at Geryon, which makes the rest of this fight much easier. Thankfully, the mission is over once we beat him. Now, this mission doesn't have much combat as there are only 3 required combat encounters, which are the Dull Hands and the Altar of Evil, a Hell Vanguard and some other demons on the Temperance Wagon, and fighting a bunch of chess pieces in a maze. Mission 15 immediately starts with a fight with the Fallen. They're actually really easy as every time you perfectly block them, they open up their weak spot. So block a few times and then attack. The rest of the mission is more of a labyrinth where you have to hit these multicolored wheels in a certain order to find 3 Ori Halcom fragments to start a lift. Mission 16 requires getting the Golden Sun and Onyx Moon Shard. Both of these items require fighting some enemies, which isn't all that hard as I've gotten pretty decent with Royalguard at this point. The biggest point of interest with Mission 16 is our fight with Lady, as she's the only human boss in the game. The best strategy here is to block the bullets and rockets she shoots at you and then attack. I find it easier to jump and guard to block the rocket, as doing it on the ground keeps getting me knocked down. And since she doesn't have much health, this boss fight doesn't last very long. Mission 17 is mostly just running through a bunch of rooms, doing some frustrating platforming, and fighting some easy enemies. The Abysses spawn in this mission and they use movesets from previous enemies, but have a lot more health, but they aren't hard to deal with. Now the strategy for the fight with the Doppelganger is really interesting.
I know why you're here. You're here to ask me some questions. Well, too bad. I've already answered them myself. I don't need you anymore.
To beat him, you have to open these shutters when he gets near to make him vulnerable to damage, with each shard taking 3 Royalguard counters to open. Get near a shutter, lock onto it, and when he gets close to attack, counter his attack into the shutter. Do this one more time, and then start filling the Rage Mirror to the max. On the 3rd counter, not only will the shutter open, but it will deal damage to the Doppelganger. Keep repeating the process until he's down. In Mission 18, we jump through a portal and land on a chessboard where we have to destroy the Damned King. This fight wasn't very long, mainly because the king attacked right away from me. On other playthroughs, he never really does that. Run up to him and jump and block his AoE attack. When you hit him, he'll switch places with a knight, but he still takes damage. It also does a lot of damage, so he dies pretty fast. Once he's dead, the rest of the chess pieces get destroyed. You run through the road to despair until you reach the Lost Souls Nirvana. In this room, there's a bunch of colored gravestones, each resembling a boss you've beaten before. When you interact with a gravestone, you refight a boss again, and when you beat them, it lights up a gem on the gem board. You need to beat enough bosses to create a circuit, so the bosses I fought were Beowolf, Agni and Rudra, Nevan, and Geryon. Each of these bosses have less health than their original battles, so they are a cakewalk. The shortest route would have been fighting Agni and Rudra, Cerberus, and Beowolf, but I just didn't feel like fighting Cerberus again as that fight is kind of long. Once a circuit is made, a portal opens and we head into Mission 19. Here we start in a large pool of blood and fight Abysses. They aren't too hard, but they do have a good amount of health and they like to shoot projectiles, which are easier to block by jumping. In the next area we have to smash a bunch of mirrors. This is a little finicky as you can't lock onto the mirrors, so instead we have to hit the mirrors with Royalguard. By attacking enemies at certain angles, we are able to damage them. The mirror you're meant to attack keeps changing positions, so this takes forever. You have to smash 3 mirrors in total before a portal opens. Now we have to kill the Abysses before the time runs out. I failed the first time because they kept launching projectiles at me, but in the next attempt they were doing melee attacks, so I was able to take them out in time. Once it's done, you grab the Samsara and run back to the mirror room and use it on the statue. Now we're at the end of the line, and through the next door is the worst boss in the history of gaming. Fighting Arkham regularly isn't that hard, it's more annoying than anything else. Now it's a whole different story trying to do with only Royalguard. This fight was 28 minutes of pure pain and misery. The fight was so frustrating just because of the legions that he created. I can't for the life of me kill these assholes before Arkham comes in and also starts an attack. It also doesn't help that these guys constantly attack, so I can't even get any time to block his attacks and get some damage in before he disappears and creates more legions. The strategy I used was really slow and more luck than skill, but what I did was kill as many legions as I could so that when Arkham jumps in, I can try and block some of his attacks. If there were too many legions, I would just block them and attack Arkham with the rage I built up from them. This fight was so long and I took so much damage that I used 8 Vital Star L's before the fight was over. Thankfully, once his health is dropped halfway, Vergil comes in and fights alongside you. Thankfully, Royalguard is taken away from us and we can't use it to fight, so the rest of this fight is much easier. I did almost rage out when Arkham grabbed me and started sapping away my health at the speed of light, but thankfully Vergil came in and saved me. I was finally able to beat him and start the last mission of the game.
Jackpot.
Not very classy for someone's dying words.
The final mission is just a boss mission. We fight Vergil for the final time, and it's a much better fight than Arkham. It's certainly more fair, that's for sure. Now, Vergil doesn't have Beowolf anymore, but he does have the Force Edge, which gives him more combos. But I find these combos easier to guard than Beowolf. But if you mess up on guarding, he will combo the hell out of you, dealing massive damage. He does mix Force Edge into his Yamato combos and ends most of his combos with a Helmbreaker, which can be blocked by jumping. This works with a few of his attacks, such as Stinger and his Judgment Cuts. When enough damage is dealt, he will Devil Trigger. I don't recommend attacking him during this, instead just guard all his attacks as best as you can, and when his Devil Trigger is over, he leaves himself open to attacks. Eventually, when he has about 1/4 of his health left, he goes completely apeshit and splams Helmbreakers, which can be jump guarded to fill our Rage Mirror faster, or he'll unleash a barrage of Judgment Cuts. Once he's done, he leaves himself open for a little while, which gives us plenty of time to get an attack in. Eventually, we were able to get his health down and land the final blow, and finally finish Devil May Cry 3. Well, actually, it's not over until you beat the credits, but you can't die there anyway. The challenge is finally over. This was a very fun run. It was cool seeing all the weird strategies to beat the enemies and bosses. Now, you can't go through the entire game using only Royalguard, as some enemies and objects need to be attacked with other means, but it was surprising seeing how much of this game was possible to beat with only Royalguard. Now, I never really used Royalguard before this challenge, but after doing this challenge, I'm going to be using it a lot more. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.
Oh, speaking of a kind devil, he finally decided on a name for his shop. It took him quite a while to pick one. Wanna know the name? Devil May Cry.